Hey gang, it's Will from Tested.
And it's Norm from Tested.
Norman Chan.
We got big phones.
The Duke.
I cannot lie. Well, this is the Duke. This is your phone. It's the
I like
iPhone
the Duke.
6 Plus. I think people have been converted. Do you remember 4 or 5 years ago when people they laughed at Dell for making the Dell Axiom, the 5-inch phone? Well, we got 5.5 and 5.7 inch phones.
I think the Axiom people laughed because it was a bad 5-inch phone, in fairness.
And most of those phones back then were pretty bad. Turns out this year, the bigger phones aren't so bad anymore. So Apple obviously has a 6 Plus. A lot of people love it. It's been selling really well. We've talked about how great the screen is, 1080p screen. And then Samsung, late last year, a little after that, released the Galaxy Note 4. And that's what we're reviewing today. The Note 4 is they have 2 flagship phones. They have the Galaxy S line, which is this year coming out, the S6. They just announced that.
It's what, a 5-inch phone?
5.1-inch phone. Yeah, about the 5-inch phone range. And then on the bigger line, in between the phone and the tablet, I'm not going to say that stupid word, it is the Note series. So the Note 4 is the latest one. And it was their first device that uses a super high resolution screen.
So what's the resolution on the screen?
2560 by 1440.
That's a lot of pixels.
I know, and even the newer one, the Galaxy S6, also 1440p, but even higher pixel density.
So because it's a smaller phone.
Because it's a smaller screen phone.
Do you think that's necessary?
We'll talk about what no. The answer is no. Okay. It's not necessary. But we'll do a little comparison and A/B testing as well. With smartphones today, I think a lot of the things that we talk about in terms of specifications to hardware, they're what we call known quantities. We know, Samsung makes a SoC, Qualcomm makes a SoC every year. Snapdragon gets faster. They're quad core now. This is a Snapdragon 805. It's 3 gigs of RAM now, 32 gigs of storage. This stuff, none of it really matters. It's really a few things about the phone experience that we think matters, namely the screen, the camera, the call quality, and the smoothness of the interface.
It's the stuff that you use all the time that if it's bad, makes you crazy, and if it's good, hopefully you don't even notice it.
And the good thing about this phone is nothing about it makes me crazy.
That's good.
That's pretty good, including the UI. Okay. The UI doesn't make me crazy. So we hated it a lot.
A lightly skinned.
I wouldn't say lightly skinned.
Okay.
And actually the launcher I'm using now, the first thing I did, because of course it's Android, you can put in any launcher you want. This is the Google Now launcher, which gives me access to my Google Now. Let me make sure I'm not showing things. Where's my phone?
Don't put that on.
I'll tease it.
It's over there on the left.
I'll tease it.
Okay, Google.
There it goes.
Yeah, so it works.
Yeah.
Google Now.
So while I can replace the home screen with the Google Now launcher, which I like a lot, you can't really get away from TouchWiz.
Like the tray with all the applications, all those square icons, the settings menu, all that stuff is still in there.
Oh yeah. And that's just Samsung's thing. But again, like I said, nothing drives me completely crazy about this phone.
But when you compare it to something like the OnePlus One that was Cyanogen phone, or one of the older HTC phones that's powered by Google with the stock version of Android on it, you're getting a little bit of a different experience. But as you said, it's not bad.
Absolutely, a little bit of different experience. Also, depending on which carrier you buy this from, if you buy this from at&t versus an unlocked version or its international version, all of those have slightly different experiences. Okay. I'm actually using the international unlocked version for this. It was provided to us by B&H to test for a month, and I got this phone in primarily, one, I wanted to see what this phone was like, but also to test the Gear VR with. And is this a phone I would buy just to use Gear VR? Because Gear VR, I think there are some compelling experiences there, some good games and good demos there. The phone itself, the difference between the international version and the US version is they actually use different processors. Okay. There's an international that uses the Exynos, I think.
The Samsung
SoC. Yeah. And then the US one uses a Snapdragon 805. Performance-wise, since I only have one, I can't do a direct comparison, but from what I've read and what people said, they're almost identical.
The reason one uses the Snapdragon, one uses the Samsung processor, has to do with the radios that are in use in the United States, right?
I think so. I'm not exactly 100% sure, but that's just the way it is. Okay. And with regions, some software is enabled, some aren't. That's just how it is.
So you mentioned some stuff that TouchWiz does. What does TouchWiz change? Can you run us through a couple of things?
I'll show you the settings menu. If you scroll down, for example, the home. This is TouchWiz.
Performance is good.
Here. Yeah, I mean, all the scrolling stuff, that's fine. But this is TouchWiz, and for the most part, it's not bad. Like, you have your shortcut icons up here. You can actually have a whole range of them. You know, there's a screen mirroring. There's a side panel for shortcuts. This stuff, I think you can configure that. You can have notification panels.
Is this where you control all the stylus stuff as well?
Stylus stuff is it's separate, but you can go into your settings menu. In settings, this is all TouchWiz settings, which has you know, stuff that you can, like, for example, change the vibration mode. You can have vibration intensity. I don't know. You can't do that on iOS, right?
Yeah, you can. No, you're right. You can't do it. You can change the pattern. You can make it
right. You can make tap your own pattern. Yeah. But you can change, you know, the intensity of the haptic feedback. All of that stuff on Android on TouchWiz. I think it's nice. But there's also some additional stuff that I didn't really use because I hadn't used TouchWiz in a while that I don't know if I like so much. For example, I can open up Twitter, and I don't know if I can do this. I can shrink it down. I can actually window my applications.
Wow.
I don't know if I should open, for example, Chrome. Okay. And let's go to test it in Chrome.
That seems safe.
Yes. Loading up tested, I believe. There it goes. You see, I'm shrinking my window right there. And I can actually, because there's so much screen real estate, I can actually hold this and drag this around.
Is this a feature you ended up using?
No, not really at all. The type of multitasking, I think the only time I really use this is if you think about how you use phones that are full screen applications, mail, and if you're copying something from a web page to mail, from Twitter to mail. That's really the only type of multitasking. And instead of clicking, you know, the multitasking icon and switching between your different applications, you know, going between Mail and Chrome, I can then just look side by side.
But you still have to copy and paste. It's not like you're dragging and dropping, right?
Right. But I can look at, for example, an image, and it comes in from the corner.
It seems like this is a little bit of a Norm. Why are you in incognito mode? I don't want to watch that kind of video.
I gotta get out of there. I can. It comes in from the corner.
This is an underwhelming demo so far.
No. You have to trust me.
You did it once, we saw it.
I did it once. And not only can you move your windows around, you can maximize it. There's another menu there to maximize it. It really wasn't really a thing. And it didn't slow down the UI, but it's a nice little feature.
I mean, we saw this kind of multitasking on the Surface RT tablets from Microsoft a few years ago, and I found in reality I never used it.
Yeah,
right?
no, never really used it. It wasn't like I was stacking applications on top and bottom.
Yeah.
It kind of makes more sense as you move into tablet territory. You know, if you're running a widescreen 4:3 tablet, and then you can have, or 60:9 tablet, and you have web page on one side and typing on the other side, that makes a little more sense. On a phone, not really so much.
It's just a pain in the
even
ass.
a phone that's 5.7 inch, not really something I would use. Yeah. Another differentiating feature for this phone is that it does have a stylus.
This is super interesting to me. I mean, in our line of work, we take notes all the time.
Yep.
And take a lot of written notes. I've been using touch styluses on this type of device for 10 years now, starting with the original Windows tablet PCs. Can you write in the same size that you would write on a piece of paper with this thing?
No.
Okay.
You have to write bigger, absolutely. But this is an active stylus. It's made by Wacom, and you can see that there's a. I don't know if you can see there's a circle underneath. The stylus isn't actually touching.
You might need to turn the brightness down a little bit.
Touching. Yeah, maybe I can do that.
That's convenient.
There it goes. And you can see right there that little hovering circle.
Yeah.
So it is an active stylus, and you can configure it so applications will have both your fingers touch. So actually, it does work with the finger right now, but it will work with the stylus. So we'll say this is a test. Oh, my chicken
That's
scratch.
so big.
The takeaway is that those note taking on this was actually useful.
It pops up over the UI, right?
It did. So let me demonstrate that again. When the stylus is in its holster, by taking it out, a menu pops up, and this is something we've seen with things like the NVIDIA Shield tablet.
Yeah.
And there's taking notes, your action memo. You can actually select and it'll OCR what you select. You can clip from an image, or you can write on the screen. Screen write will let you just for example, take a screenshot, and then it'll give you the option to draw.
So that kind of stuff is amazing for giving feedback on like web designs and anything you have to give visual feedback on a document. Like that's an incredibly useful feature.
But the thing I use this most on, and it's useful if you're in that like kind of productivity like PowerPoint world, which we're not really, we're not developers. But there is a built-in application. It's called S-Note, and as
S-Note.
Pop that up, that's where all your action memos are saved.
Do they call them action memos?
They do call them
That's
action
an
memos.
unfortunate name.
And if I go back to all my memos,
is this editable when you're in here?
Absolutely.
So like the thing that you drew on the home screen, you can then open up and edit it here.
So I have my memos from other meetings, a little tic-tac-toe there, and then you can create notebooks, and of course it gives you all the settings for changing your type.
So does this integrate with something that you can store this on your desktop? Like you should sync this over the internet to your desktop as well?
Yeah, you can sync it or forward it or email it. But it doesn't
integrate with Evernote or OneNote or something like that?
This is Samsung's own thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems like this is a feature that would be unbelievably useful if by the time I got back to my computer, this stuff was all just already there, and I could
and you could launch
it.
Evernote, and you can just do this with Evernote.
Fair enough.
I mean, you don't need to launch S-Note. That's just the software they have built in.
Can you configure the pop-up to give you an Evernote?
You can't do the pop-up. Yeah, the pop-up is that thing only.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the pen. I think it's a really nice feature that I never saw myself using before, but now that I think of it, it's like what I liked about the Microsoft Surface, the Surface Pro, Surface Pro 3. I would browse using the pen, and while I don't like, it's just something that's nice to have.
Right.
And I definitely use this in meetings, taking notes, and then have emailed them to myself.
So what about the rest of the phone? How's battery life going?
Battery life is good. So one of the things I know you love about the iPhone 6 Plus is you get...
Call it the Duke, please.
The Duke is that you get... Wait, hold on. Is that there's you get more than 1 day of battery life.
Yeah.
And it's something I love about the OnePlus One also.
If I forget to charge it at night, I'm definitely good through the morning. There's more than enough time for me to get to the office and plug in, and probably still have plenty of battery left over.
Right.
Even when we're at a trade show or something like that with these big phones, like we don't have the constant race to find a place to charge when we're at CES or E3 or GDC or whatever.
When you're using it as a hotspot and using it all day on travel. I felt the same way with the OnePlus One phone. That was the first phone that I thought a day and a half, no problem.
No matter what I do.
No matter, it was going to be a full day.
Right.
It wasn't end of work day. It wasn't a full work day. And part of that is because of the large capacity batteries. The iPhone 6 Plus has a 2,900 milliamp hour battery, 2950, and the OnePlus One is a 3,100 milliamp hour battery, which is replaceable. This battery, which is replaceable, that's nice. It's one of the largest phone batteries I've seen in terms of capacity. It's 3,200 milliamp hours.
That's a huge battery, yeah.
But it doesn't last a full day. Oh. Actually, it's a full work day, yes, for sure. But this battery, by the end of the actual day, this is a 7 a.m. to 7 to 8 p.m. phone.
So if you're going to go out after work, you want to make sure you plug in at some point during the day. That's a real bummer. On a phone this size, I expect to have some kick-ass battery life.
And part of that is because of the screen. So now's a good time to talk about this screen. This is a 2560 by 1440 AMOLED screen. That's Samsung's thing. It is using a pentile sub-pixel range.
All the AMOLED screens are using pentile displays at this point.
And while those are getting better and better, I still think if you do a comparison one-to-one of the same image, which unfortunately for you guys out there, it's difficult to tell in 720p video.
Right.
RGB stripe LCD, much better still. A great LCD is going to be better than a great AMOLED. They're close.
And this is backed up by Ray Sonora's DisplayMate testing and a lot of other independent testers.
Now, that's not to say that the screen is bad at all, because it's not bad.
It's a nice looking screen.
It's a fantastic screen. There's some images here. If you take photos with your DSLR, import them,
which everybody does.
Which everyone does.
Yeah.
They look really, really good. And that's not even a DSLR photo, but just photos look fantastic. But the question is, do you need that resolution? Do you need, why couldn't this have been just a 1080p phone? Obviously, higher resolution, better for VR.
Right.
Gear VR. But do you need a 2560 by 1440 phone for a 5-inch or 5.7 inch mobile experience.
Presumably with the stylus stuff, having higher resolution screen lets you have better detail on the text and does a better job capturing the fine edges of handwriting and stuff like that.
But
it didn't look like that was the case because the digitizer didn't seem to be high enough resolution.
You need the touch sensor to be the same resolution as a screen, which it's not. There's a little abstraction there. And doing something like an A/B test, here are two images. I'm going to go back and forth between them. Now, I know you guys out there, you can't tell. You can't tell a difference. So I'm going to give this to Will.
Okay.
All right, Will.
Oh, this is a test.
Some clear A/B testing. Stare into Will's eyes. Which one is higher resolution? Don't zoom in.
I'm not zooming.
I want to see if you're pinching the zoom.
I'm not zooming. I'm only using one thumb. I don't think I can tell.
One is exactly 1920 by 1080, and one is 2560 by 1440.
I think that the first one is the higher resolution image, but I'm not super confident in that. Like the details all look exactly the same.
Let's take a look. I can tell you.
Is that the answer I was supposed to give? Did I pass?
You did not pass. The second one is the higher resolution one.
Yeah, like you can't tell a difference though.
You cannot tell the difference even when this photo is using all of the pixels.
Yeah.
And here's the second photo. You can tell by using.
Well, I didn't zoom in.
I know you didn't zoom in, but hair, and then to prove this is the 1921, it looks a little fuzzier.
Fuzzy hair.
And it's, yeah. So you couldn't tell a difference. I couldn't tell a difference. I can't tell a difference with text. It really, and there is no high bit rate 1440p video. It's available for easy download or streaming. YouTube, you can't tell. There's no reason for this.
So you're saying that the only outcome, it's good for VR.
Good for
presumably,
VR. Yep.
Which a very small number of people who buy this phone are going to probably use.
Yep.
And it's an active detriment to the rest of the phone. It's going to hurt battery life, and it's going to make. Does it get warm?
It does get warm when you're running games. I think some games do render at that full native resolution. Simple things like Temple Run. It's. I think overall, I would call it, if you're not doing VR, it's unnecessary. It's a totally because we can do it. There is power saving mode that actually turns the screen black and white. Actually, I have to enable this. Here you go. If you want to save your battery, you can turn your screen. It turns black and white in ultra power saving mode.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about AMOLED is it's supposed to be more efficient, especially if you're running black stuff, right? Because anything that's black takes no power to render. So it's a little bit disappointing to me that this battery isn't badass. And it's not like the phone's that much greater resolution than even like the iPhone 6 Plus or the previous Notes either, is it?
Yeah, it's
it's a couple hundred extra lines.
2560 by 1440 compared to
2208 by 1080 or something like that. I have to look.
It's 1920, but it's rendering at a higher resolution.
It's rendering, yeah.
Computationally, it's
1242 by 2208 for the Plus.
Yeah, it's. I'd be happier if it did what iPhone did and renders some stuff and give you aliasing and use more of the GPU in here, as opposed to actually needing the pushing more pixels on this thing.
In fairness, the experience with that on the first release of iOS that supported this phone wasn't great. It's only become okay after the point release with iOS 8.1.
All right, so another important feature,
obviously
the camera. There was like a 60 megapixel camera on the back, and it does have optical image stabilization. That's one of the reasons that it protrudes, has a little bit of the bulge. The LG G3 also has a similar optical stabilization.
HTC phones have had that for a while.
And I love the photos. HDR, it's very fast, it's responsive. Here's the, you can switch between several modes, the preset modes.
Are those like Instagram filter modes, or are those for like activities like outside and stuff like that?
And fast shutter. And then actually there are a ton of settings here that I can show you. You have your ISO, white balance, your recording modes, your video size. It does take 4K video, so it does 16 by 9 UHD. It does do high FPS.
How does the 4K video look? Is it usable?
It's usable.
Like a phone video,
but I guess it looks best on this phone than another phone. So that's one of the reasons. I tried taking 4K video with other phones before, and there's no real reason to really do it.
Meaning that when you put them out on a 4K monitor, it looks bad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And then let me show you some of the photos I did take with this. I'll tell you right now, the image quality is some of the best I've seen on a mobile phone, definitely for an Android phone. But compared to the iPhone the new iPhone 6 photos are still better.
Okay.
Here's some images. Here's like a prototype mouse.
With low light is the problem, or
low light? Yeah, low light's the problem. Here's like I think the HDR stuff looks fantastic. Motion stuff during the daytime looks great. Here's a high-speed video. I think the high-speed stuff is actually worse than the iPhones. The shutter is not fast enough.
And it doesn't do the cool ramp that the
It doesn't
iPhone
do
does.
the cool ramp. But it's smooth and the playback is fast.
Yeah, that looks okay. And that was in the shadows as well, which is not ideal for high speed on the iPhone even. Does it fire the flash often?
It doesn't fire. I turn flash off, but it doesn't fire. It's not very sensitive. But even like dynamic range is great. Pointing straight at the sun.
So actually, would you go back to that last picture, because this was a tricky. Like this looked really overexposed for the amount of shadow that was shot in to me. Like that was it. This was in heavy shadow. You can see the blown out sun there.
See blown out sun here and the fringing right there.
But when you go up and look at my face and my daughter's face, we both were really like it did a pretty good job. I thought it did an okay job with this, although it did skew a little bit overexposed for the darkness that it was there.
This is actually in the shade, really dark, but it was HDR, and even with HDR, it can only do so much with the normal sunlight is right there, and then of course because HDR, it does blur some of the motion.
Is it doing simultaneous HDR like the newer iPhones are, or is it taking two shots and combining
I think
them?
it's simultaneous. Okay. It was really fast. It's fast enough that I leave HDR on almost all the time.
Okay. I mean, that's the thing that's changed for me with the iPhone in the last generation as well, is that HDR is an always-on feature for me now.
Your macro is good. I think dynamic range stuff looks good. Here it's like dark and
that's
then
really good.
In the background.
Yeah. That's a tough shot.
Difficult to show. With a bad phone, it's going to be real dark here, and it's going to be difficult to render both the front and the back.
Or you're going to lose all detail out of the windows. Yeah, that's good.
And then here's like low light. Again, low light, it gets muddy.
Yeah.
There you go.
Frank has a unibeard.
Yeah, there's a lot of compression, and it doesn't look good.
It's just grainy.
Example,
yeah.
Right there.
Does it let you adjust ISO and stuff like that, or
Yep.
no? That's interesting.
And then your standard landscape shots.
Yeah.
Look fantastic. Compression-wise, I think the photos don't compress that much, which I think is really good. This is the kind of scene where on a bad phone, like a low-resolution phone, you get a ton of compression because there's so much detail that needs to be stored. And the places where I would expect a ton of compression, I didn't see a ton of. So a really good camera. It's fast enough to get dogs walking at you.
That's awesome.
Right out there.
Look at that happy dog. Yeah, this looks much better than I've like. Typically, the knock against the phones that you've tested that are Android phones has been, hey, these are okay, except the camera's kind of crappy. Yeah. So this is a nice. It looks good. And you think that the software changes that they made to the default camera are actually improvements?
Yes, I never went to the Google camera. Actually, I don't like that new Google camera that they launched last year. Okay. I think this one's better. And then it does have a bunch of other stuff. Like I said, the back comes off. I know a lot of people don't like this plastic faux leather back. It is just plastic, but
pebbled plastic.
It wants to look like it's leather.
I find that a little weird, but I mean, it looks sturdy.
Like I said, it's not my design pick, but it doesn't annoy the hell out of me.
Right. It has a micro SD card slot, though.
Yeah. So I'll pop the back off again.
You're taking the back off a ton.
So you have your SIM card, and then it does have micro SD. It's 32 gigabytes of basic storage.
Do you know what that spot that has the vent on the bottom is? Yeah.
Speaker.
Okay. It's not on the bottom, it's on the back. That makes sense. How does the storage work on current versions of Android? Can you use it to install apps and stuff, or is that still not recommended?
You can use it to store apps.
But are you using it for media? Or?
I'm using it for both.
Okay.
Yeah, for media, and it does a good job of managing. Like some of the Oculus stuff is on that storage card, and some stuff is local. Okay. And the apps are pretty good.
And there's no performance difference between the local and the storage card stuff. That's good.
It does have a fingerprint sensor, which is atrocious.
Man, I love a fingerprint sensor.
Can
we compare?
I actually have it turned off, but I'll show you that yours. Right. This one, because it's a wide, you actually have to swipe it.
Oh, it's one of those.
And I could never really get it to work.
That's unfortunate.
Even training it multiple times, I really don't like the fingerprint sensor on this phone.
What about other crapware?
There's your health stuff. So if I turn this on,
this is something Samsung was really proud of.
Yep, how many steps? It'll give me notifications. Hey, you haven't walked in an hour. That's health stuff. My recommendation, turn all that stuff off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it impact battery, or is it just annoying?
It's annoying. I mean, you can also check, use the IR, check your pulse, heart rate stuff. That's convenient, but we're all going to have smartwatches in the future.
Do you feel like you need to check your pulse regularly?
My pulse is always elevated.
Yeah.
It's just depressing. That's just depressing. So that's it. It's
speakerphone.
It's a weak speakerphone. I think. I don't know if we want to do a test right now, but using it in the car as a speakerphone, terrible.
Is it for the other person that's terrible, or for you?
For
okay.
Me, yeah.
Do they get voice cancellation so they don't hear road noise?
They do.
And stuff?
Everyone else hears me fine.
Okay.
But it's not loud enough.
Oh. Is it because the speaker's on the back, probably?
Maybe. But I just think the design of the speakerphone,
Okay.
And that's an important thing for this. Otherwise, call quality is fine, internet reception, wonderful.
Does it voice over LTE if you're on a provider that has that?
I don't know. I think so.
Okay.
But
I would expect to at this point.
Yeah.
What about OS updates?
Right now, it's still in KitKat.
Yeah.
It's still 4.4. It does not have Lollipop yet, and I don't know when that's going to happen because Samsung has to make it work for TouchWiz, and then the carriers have to also put their stuff in.
There'll be a lag.
It could be a while.
Okay.
Yep. So that's probably my biggest knock against it. I think the screen is. I'm not against having a big phone, 5.7-inch phone. I'm not against having a pen.
Is this front pocket or back pocket for you?
This is back pocket.
Okay.
Yeah, this is absolutely a sticking out of the back pocket. And if we compare it just physically with your iPhone, I do like the edges are a little more square than yours. I wasn't dropping phones there.
It's
easy to hold. But comparing it to the iPhone is actually a little taller.
It looks like like when you count the space, the curve, there's more space between the edge of the phone and the edge of the screen as well.
And if you look, the screen is bigger on the Note because it's 5.7.
Well, there's no home button.
5.4, but there's more space on the bottom, more chin on the bottom.
The one thing about the iPhone is it's thinner, right?
It is also slightly thinner.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It's more than slightly. It's a button width basically. Yeah. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's about the same size.
For all, yep.
Yeah.
And then in terms of width, the Note 4 is so slightly
fatter
as well with the buttons.
Yeah. I think it's a wash on size.
Yeah. I mean, the takeaway is that big phones, I think, are fine. Keep in your bag, even if you're keeping it in your pocket. Ergonomically, this is not going to slip out of your hand. I do like you can replace the battery, put in memory cards, whenever.
Replacing the batteries, like every phone should support battery replacement. The memory card is neat as well. I mean, this seems like a good phone. It seems like you're pretty pleased with it.
It is a very good phone. It's $300 on contract for 32 gigs.
Can you get bigger if you want?
I think it's just the one model.
Okay.
Because of the SD card. And then off contract, it depends on if you buy it from a certain carrier, T-Mobile, at&t, it can be either $700 or $800.
Wow, that's expensive.
Yeah. I mean, same as price as iPhone.
Exactly.
$825.
Okay, so that'll do it. It's the Samsung Note 4.
It is the Samsung Galaxy Note 4. I do like that the home screen, the unlock screen, gives you this animation. Oh, a little flourish. It's the color. It looks at the color of the background.
Okay.
And it gives you the bubbles based on that color.
And are you doing a gesture to unlock?
No, I'm just.
You don't have a passcode on it. You're just freewheeling Norman Chan.
Yep.
Would you recommend people buy it now? It's 6 months old at this point, so theoretically you're going to replace it in October, September timeframe, right?
You've said that because of the Duke.
The Duke.
You don't use your iPad less.
I use my iPad a lot less.
I don't use my tablet less because of the big phone. I still prefer reading on the tablet. So for me, it's less valuable that way. I think I'm going to switch back to my Moto X.
Okay.
In terms of the Galaxy products and Gear VR compatibility, I'm more interested in the Galaxy.
The battery life is concerning with this as well.
S6.
I mean, if you're going to carry a big honking phone like that, I would expect it to last 18 hours, no problem. And if you're not getting that out of it, then something needs to change.
Yeah, sure. So. Already 63%.
I'm at 81. Anyway, on that note, we will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching Galaxy Note 4. Bye.
Bye.